Today, citing numerous sources, Rinpoche explained the benefits of the mind that aspires to enlightenment and all of the stages necessary to achieve that great realization. Choke ritual.
Tiba Chenmo, Tijen Kaduro, Tijen. Tiba Chenmo Lange Lojan Wala Song. Tijen Jogo, Senja Kona Damba Tambuche. Saint Jebi Su Nibaje. Jin Shubala Su Saji Somba Marba. Dani Bawa de Jebi Su de la Jukala de Jawa. Shanju Saint Jean, Jebi Se. Chuge Zongas. Chuge Zongas, what the Marba.
Lesso?
What the Chuge Zonga Kadul,
Lesso, Jepa.
Chuge Zonga Kadul,
Lesso.
And then the Mama Tuba Shibit, Tuba Manaba Sons, Yana Shitu, what the song on Tuba Manaba Son Katu de Zamara. Shanju Sembe to Mama Tuba Shibit. Shanju Sembe to Mama Tuba Shibit, and then Shanju Sembe to Malaya, Cambodan, Lubertan, and Chiwati Genesis of Mobile, Matuba Tuba Shibitaji. 2000나 만나봐 송고로다. 상주 세미동바. 투바 만나봐 송주가도 다른 가서 되는 줄 말아. then 라린 사지 지는데도 나린 사지 네바 투바 만나봐 송주 사지 집에 있나 수고고이 티 올이야 타마 네바들도 네바 투바 만나봐 송주라니 senze senjela manya yula loba da jawa jendo tadamde yula loba ni de do.
Okay, so once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, and specifically the section on training the mind in the stage of the path for beings of great capacity. And in that section, when we look at the overall outline, we'll see that Lama Tsongkhapa's own outline breaks that into three categories. The first category is showing that developing the spirit of enlightenment or developing bodhicitta is the only entrance into the Mahayana, so the only doorway into the great vehicle practice. The second category is how you develop the spirit of enlightenment, how you develop bodhicitta. And then the third category is once you have, how you learn the bodhisattva deeds. So how you learn the bodhisattva deeds after having developed the spirit of enlightenment or after having developed bodhicitta. So bodhicitta, is a Sanskrit word. We translate it into English as the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Also, the spirit of awakening is the translation that they've chosen here. So you'll hear that word, those words used, but it all means the same thing. Bodhicitta, mind that aspires to enlightenment, spirit of awakening. So in those three categories, when you move through the outline, you'll find that then there is a breakdown of under the second heading of how you develop the spirit of enlightenment, there are four categories. And we're actually in the fourth, but the four are how the spirit of enlightenment depends on causes to arise. And then the second category are the stages in which you train in order in training in the spirit of enlightenment, or the stages of the spirit of enlightenment. The third category is the measure of producing bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment. And then the fourth category, which is the one that we're dealing with now, deals with the ritual for getting the bodhisattva vows. So how to adopt the spirit of enlightenment through its ritual. If that's the section that we're going to be in. So it's the fourth category under the second category. And so the ritual section begins on page 61. Okay. So that...
라자 셰바샤 괴베 대셰바샤 오스 고스 인상 그냥 거도
Then the section that we're dealing with that fourth category of the actual ritual. And let me just go through, there's one more outline piece, just one moment. Anyway, just give me one moment. Okay, so there are three categories when we look at the major heading of how to adopt the spirit of enlightenment through its ritual. So the first is attaining that which you have not attained, acquiring those things which are needed that you have not already acquired. The second is maintaining and not weakening that which you have attained. And then the third category is the method of repairing the spirit of enlightenment if you do weaken it. So if you break any of the bodhisattva vows, or if you waver on any of the advices related to the aspirational bodhicitta, then how do you repair that? So what do you do? So we're today, Rinpoche said, going to begin with maintaining and not weakening what you have attained. So that's the actual second category. So that's where we're going to begin. And in English, that's on page 69. So the section begins, of the ritual section begins on 61, but we've covered some of that material already up through now to the second category of maintaining and not weakening what you have attained. Diksung, kanga lasung.
Oh, yeah.
Chanka kang.
단제바 tuba manyaba sungwa la laja sheba sha gwebes and sha chu sang laja de she gures sheba sha gwebe de sheba sha was sha chu sang tuba manya laja de la ni sender senje manya be yula la ba da jewa yin dong de da me de yula la ba was sender senje manya be yula la ba da jewa shima penji le senje de me de yula la ba 사진이지 다 너무 진짜 생지 뭐냐면 줄을 하버들라 너무라 제래도와 너무라 제 천대 생지 뭐냐면 줄을 하버라 제 생지라 주주 페이셔도 편견된 바를 하버스 대바 준비 생지를 가부용하게 체도 대바 생지가 편견된 거를 편견된 바를 하버스 편견된 바를 하버 너무지 다니바 생지군 피시도 내주도 제발라 러버다스 생지군의 야피시도 네 냐마질 뒤주도 생지군고지로다 생지를산 뒤주도 생지를산 당고지로 주도 러버라 주도 제발라 러버다스 네바제 강게도 생지비 생지를 못 보다스 세제 단지도 세제바 예자 네 세제 가이나 르봉주 말레스 마봉알 러바다 수나 다 에제지 수사발 러바 수나다 에시 수마산 사제도 말아 네 수나다 에시 수사발 러바스 담부지 어디 말
Okay, so looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's outline, so when we read, maintaining and not weakening what you have attained, you need to know the precepts, so I will explain them. This has two parts. And again, the word precepts here, it can also be translated as advices. So it's just be careful not to confuse this word that's being translated as precepts with vow, because it's a completely different thing that was being spoken of. A precept, in this case, is more literally translated as an advice. But advice doesn't give it the potency that it needs to have either. So it's kind of, if you could have a word in English that was between advice and a commitment or a vow, that's what this is referring to. It's very strong advice that you have to heed. It's kind of like, I advise you not to jump off of that cliff. It's kind of that kind of advice that is when they use this word advice. So that's why they've chosen to translate it as precept, to give it the weight that it deserves, but it shouldn't be confused with vow. It's a totally different situation. You don't take a precept in the sense, like you take a vow.
다 천대를 생기면 줄 하버들라.
Dead school Rinpoche, Gongyal
Yeah,
Mebuchi.
okay, yeah.
So I will explain this has two parts. In my mind, I translated this all for you. The training and the precepts that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment in this lifetime. So training in the advice that makes it so you don't weaken your bodhicitta. So you see how the word advice can be used here. So what advice can you be given so that your bodhicitta doesn't weaken? So the precepts that you train in that cause you not to make you have less bodhicitta. The training and the precepts that cause you not to separate from your spirit of enlightenment in future lifetimes as well. So training and the precepts or advices that create the throwing karma or the propelling karma that allow you to not separate from bodhicitta in your future life. So what you're advised to do so that in your next life you still have your bodhicitta. So that's the second part. Now, the first part, training in the precepts that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment in this lifetime, there are 4 points. So it says the training the precepts that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment in this lifetime has 4 parts. First, the training in the precept to recall the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment in order to increase the strength of your enthusiasm for it. So thinking again and again of the benefits of bodhicitta, and by doing so, this will make you want to practice it. This will cause you to be enthusiastic about the spirit of awakening if you know the benefits of it. Number 2, training in the precept to generate the spirit of enlightenment 6 times each day in order to increase the actual spirit of enlightenment. This is recalling at 6 specific times during the day, spread out, the mind that aspires to enlightenment as a way to remain mindful of that bodhicitta that that mind that aspires to enlightenment, that is your primary aspiration or primary goal. The goal to become a Buddha is your primary goal. And if you remind yourself 6 times a day, that causes that mindfulness not to weaken. Number 3, the training in the precept not to mentally abandon the living beings for whose sake you develop the spirit of enlightenment. So this is the training in the precept or advice that makes it so you mentally don't abandon any sentient being, so that all sentient beings remain your focus. So this is the advice that makes it so all sentient beings remain your focus. And then the 4th, the training in the precept to accumulate the collections of merit and sublime wisdom. One has to, in order to become a Buddha, have the collection of merit and have a collection of sublime wisdom. So what advice is given here related to that accumulation? So what in the Bodhisattva advices, this specific advice relates to the amassing of those collections that are necessary to amass to become Buddha. Okay.
That's
so. Shada K Chenpo, the Becha Mambo, the so, okay. So, There are the training and the precepts that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment. In this lifetime, we saw there were 4 categories. So we're going to begin with the first category, the training in the precept to recall the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment in order to increase the strength of your enthusiasm for it. So think about the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment after you have either researched them in the sutras or listened to them from your guru. They are explained in detail in the array of stock sutras, so look there. So here, Lama Tsongkhapa is stating that the benefits of bodhicitta, or of the spirit of enlightenment, are mentioned in many, many sutras. This is a theme that you can find throughout the sutra teachings. And then Lama Tsongkhapa gives an example of a specific sutra that you can find these benefits in. And now Rinpoche said, this is the sutra. So here the pronouncements of, here it's saying that in the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, there are many, many different examples of the benefits, but the array of stock sutra is an example that Lama Tsongkhapa can specifically point out. So this is the actual array of stock sutra that can be found in the Kangjur. So behind us we have the Kangjur, which are the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, and the Tanjur, which are the authentic Indian commentaries. This text falls under the category of the Kangjur, the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, and it's under Penchen Jani Jaju Ja De Nija Dru. Nija Dru. Okay, so we have in a Penchen Ja Nija Dru. So we find that's where we find the array of stock sutra in the Kangjur teachings. Yapudu.
Yeah.
So we find this sutra mentioned a lot in various texts. It's mentioned in, I even said it to Rinpoche, this sutra is constantly mentioned. So that's the sutra that's being spoken of, and we have it here. I don't believe it's in English yet, but we have it in Tibetan. Jikden de donegare?
Jiden Lama Jebe Shajan Jiden the Kuala Kudik and the Lada Mayoro. Lada Masamage Shasha Yul.
Oh, Shashe, okay.
Jiden Lama Jebe Shajan Juro. What the Shuju Marbe Shuju, Sanji Masu Pashin Shadun, Sanji Katu, what the Euro. Beijing Pashin, what the Katu, Pen Katu, the driver.
So we find in many sources where these benefits of the mind that aspires to enlightenment are presented. In Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection, we find these benefits. So we find those benefits. And then in the Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, we find it pointed out where it states that the moment that this precious mind that aspires to enlightenment awakens, this being becomes called a bodhisattva. And then when he or she becomes a bodhisattva, he or she is worthy of homage throughout all world systems by all beings. So the gods and the humans all bow down to that being. So the moment that a being, it's not an exact translation, I'll find it, it's right here, but it's a big book. So the moment that this precious mind awakens, that being is a bodhisattva, and then becomes an object of observation of homage for all beings. So that's a quote from the Bodhichara Avatara, and it, Dikson.
So
the mind that aspires to enlightenment here it is. The moment an awakening mind arises in those fettered and weak in the jail of cyclic existence, they become named a son of the Sugatas, a bodhisattva, and will be revered by both men and gods of the world. So we find this pointed out. The Cheek Jason.
What the Pachanolo than Lushan Chusen Badan and the Rabun Shan Chusen Badan, what the Shan Chusen Julie Rabun in Nayako, Jidan Hamaji Shasha use Junugos.
So all 6 realms of cyclic existence, we find bodhisattvas in all 6 realms of cyclic existence. We find examples of rabbits and lo sena Jason lo
Nanga.
Oh, and lo nagas, examples of nagas that are bodhisattvas and rabbits that are bodhisattvas. So we find these bases suitable for a bodhisattva. All bases suitable for a bodhisattva.
What the pain what the swing
And so there are many, these are the many benefits that are stated. These are where the many benefits are stated. Even Buddha Shakyamuni in his previous life attained the mind that aspires to enlightenment in the hell realm. And as a result of the incredible merit that was created by this strong mind in the hell realm, he immediately was died, hit on the head and died, and then was born in the higher realms of cyclic existence because his karma was washed the minute that strong mind arose, and he was born. The Hadro, the human and gods, was born. Higher realms. Digso.
Oh yeah. What does Shanju Saint Julie just na? Shanju Saint Juna Keji ki Ku Juna Damiata na. This is not session generations. Yamba ina Shanju Su Saint Julie Jeba ina, and this is not session. This is Geshe Lharampa. This is not session generation. Jidan Hamaji Vishajan Juro. Yamba Julie Shanju Saint Julie Jevana. Yamba de Jidan Lharampa.
So the moment an awakening mind arises, this is again from Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. The moment an awakening mind arises, so the moment that bodhicitta, the spirit of awakening, arises in those fettered and weak in the jail of cyclic existence. So it says, in anyone's mind, in anywhere in cyclic existence. So they will be named a son of the Sugatas and will be revered by both men and gods of the world. So even if a being in the hell realm generates this mind that aspires to enlightenment, he or she then becomes named son of the Sugatas, which is another name for bodhisattva. And at that point, will be revered by men and gods of the world. So even the higher realm deities at that moment bow down to the being in the hell realm if he or she generates bodhicitta. So I'll read it one more time. The moment an awakening mind arises in those fettered and weak in the jail of cyclic existence, they will be named a son of the Sugatas and will be revered by both men and gods of the world. Actually, it doesn't need to be translated as a son of the Sugatas. It can be, it's just child. It's bu. So it can be a child of the Sugatas. It's fine. It's child of Sugatas.
Lama la nye Shanju Saint Lama la nye de Shanju Saint Samba de. Then the Domo Gobin Doli Jebi or is Domo Gobin Dotan. Lari Tau Dabala Yore. And then Domo Gobin Doli Jeba Sombe, Tata Guishin Jermajo, Domo Gobin Tasonde. And Jema Ayanka Kalega Lugins, Taguishins, Telejan Hadrambe, Sanjiji, 상지지 주 당지지 사변답을 송바스 텔레장 편도와데 가장비 샤주 센데 티쟁의 사변답이스 네 송바도와도 편도 소레스 텔레장 가장비스 가장비 샤주 상지지 주 당지지 사변답을 아니 샤주 센데 주 당지지 사변답을스
That's so.
너무 그 가서 고네 바바도 좀 말배.
That's so.
샤주 센을 줄을 중앙이 어도 다만지 뭐시다 요도 소리서 하장비 상지지 주지 사변 답을 샤주 센데 상지 주 당지 사변 답을스.
That's so.
나ချင်း
Namche.
사변 답을스. 사변 답을 송바 danse.
That's so.
사변 답을 송바 danse.
That's so.
어디 주잖아.
That's so. So, going back to the Lamrim Chenmo, think about the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment after you have either researched them in the sutras or listened to them from your guru. They are explained in detail in the Array of Stock Sutra, so look there. So here we have the Array of Stock Sutra, as Rinpoche pointed out, and he said that in the future he's going to go, read it privately. And then in the future, he'll also go over in class with us. Hopefully, I can bring it into English, whatever he's going to present. So that Rinpoche said in the future he will do that. But for now, he wants to just point out that this is the specific text that's being spoken of with the numbers. I forgot what they were. That's how you catalog the Kangjur, those numbers. So anyone who knows cataloging would know where to find that if they heard those numbers. So that was the reason Rinpoche had me point those numbers out. So look there. As stated above, this text says, the spirit of enlightenment is like the seed of all the Buddha qualities, and it also states the spirit of enlightenment is like a summary because it includes all the bodhisattva deeds and aspirational prayers. So we see the seed of all the Buddha's qualities. We went over many times in the medium stages of meditation by Kamalashila, where Kamalashila states that the spirit of enlightenment is the seed or the cause for the omniscience. So it speaks of it being the basis for the arisal of omniscience itself, which is one of the bodies, if you will, of a Buddha. So the arisal of omniscience comes about from this spirit of awakening. So it says, is the seed of all the Buddha qualities. So we find many examples in texts besides this and besides the sutras where this is stated.
천지 생지 맨날 줄 하바들라와 대지로 담불라 이제 담부 생지 담부 생지라 안에 주수비 체도 평행 잡아를 하고 담부도 말বে 담부지 안에 담부라고 담부 어들란 장아집이 사진이 되고니 담부들니 담부니라 니 좋아서나 론레시주다 담비 손주스 론레시주 담비 손주니 되서
롱 강저 네 롱
강주도 이제 너도 라마타서 어디 있어 론레 손주
롱당
론레시주
당
론레시주 다스 지제 네바 담비 손주 제바 담아 가마 속에 흔들흔들 손요 하레스 담비 손주스 사진이 되고 사진이.
Okay, so according to Jayan Sheba, so going back to that other commentary, what we use in the 4 interwoven commentaries, we go back now, we spoke that under that major heading, the training and the precepts that cause you not to weaken your spirit of enlightenment in this lifetime, we have 4 categories. So right now, we're in the category of training in the precept to recall the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment in order to increase the strength of your enthusiasm for it. So Jayan Sheba says, in that first category, there are 2 sections. The first section is the establishment of the sutra, of the scripture, and then what it says, or what's presented. So these are the 2 categories. So the first category is the scripture, and the second category is what's presented in it. So that's those are the two categories that Jayan Sheba says we can break what we're currently reading down into. So Rinpoche will divide it. He'll show us where those break points are. Dikson. So this would, all what we've reading so far falls under the scripture. I bet it's still look there. Okay. The Nipa? Gutso? Yine the Jayan Sheba, the Nipa Gutso.
Nipa.
Ngay sampa the long the ka then the Nipa Gutso. Yomarbe?
Nipa what?
Tambo the Jayan Sheba is Sachi Ni.
Sachi Ni Rota. Long le son suicide with the Lama Tawa the things are the Dombuko bin Totan what to
Then a Nipa Gutso.
Long le son suicide.
Telejan,
Lanche Nesama, Telejan, Hatrambe, Sanji Chutanji, Sabon Tabuson.
The
what the Shanchu Saint Virginia, but I said, Somba dance. And Shanchu Saint Bishobas, Shanchu Saint Bishobatan, Holan Tanji Dubi, Doden Tabos, Shanchu Saint Nolule, and the Shanchu Saint Bishobatan, Holan Gadote, Sajin on duty, what is. Doden Tabos, Dudujin, Rurujin, Dudujin, Doden Tabo. She la Jebere Shebala Tayebashi Yojans, Jeba Shebala Momoyores, Yojan, Dodendo, Tanji Dube, Dodendo, and Tanji Rurujin, Yunujin Sonjayores, Dodende. Don Yemba Tar, Shanchu Center, Tibajimbe Lantanji Don Rapasamento. Yemba Tar, Shanchu Saint Lantanji, Ne Dube, Don to son base, Shanchu Center, Tibajimbe Lanka Dube, Ne Rapasonjayores, Shanchu Saint, and Don to son sauce, what about Chijana?
Okay, so when we look at the commentary by Jayan Sheba, the break is, so the establishment of the sutra is this. Think about the benefits of the spirit of enlightenment after you have either researched them in the sutras or listened to them from your guru. They are explained in detail in the Array of Stalk Sutra, so look there, period. So that's where the establishment of the scripture, so that's the first category. The second category, as stated above, this text says. So what does the text say? Category number 2. It says, the spirit of enlightenment is like the seed of all the Buddha qualities. So it's like the seed or the cause of all of what arises in the, all that arises that is Buddha. And it also states the spirit of enlightenment is like a summary because it includes all the bodhisattva deeds and aspirational prayers. And it is a summary in the sense that everything is compiled into a brief indication, although there are endless detailed explanations of the parts. Like a summation of these parts, it is said to be a synopsis which brings together the key points of all the bodhisattva paths. Again, this is speaking of the spirit of enlightenment. So in saying that it's like a summary. So when we say strengthening the spirit of enlightenment, as the translators know, when we talk about strengthening the spirit of enlightenment, well, how can that be? I've already generated it. Well, the spirit of enlightenment is a summary of all that happens till you're a Buddha, and then your bodhicitta still remains as a Buddha. So it's when we say strengthening the spirit of enlightenment, it's speaking of it includes all the bodhisattva deeds and aspirational prayers. So everything related to that when using that word spirit of awakening. So that's the reason that it is that word is really potent because of what it implicitly is referring to. Khensur Rinpoche.
다 되는 샹살레 편송반네 편세지미스 샹살레 샹주 셈비사 샹사들 와데 bombu 주고 누워서 샹사 bom 법면 법어 도면 샹사들 bombu 주고 누워 bombu 주고 19 누워 근데 샹살레 편송반네 편세지미스 샹살레 편송 샹주 셈들라 면세든 조선이 요레스 sentient tantric tranju gu tu ba shao nya be sentient shangju senbi nomba ma tu na shangju sen de mesen la res shangju sen dombu ji shangju senbi nomba ma tu be ga ji shangju sen de mesen shangju senbi nomba tu ta du shangju sen ga lo ju sen yi mi cha ru da ju sen and shangsa le son bi mesen shangju shangsa le son bi mesen ji yenbe shansal sombe shaju sen pen somba de pensen ji pen des shaju sen la pensen ju sen ni yebe pensen ji yenbe pensen ji pen yenbe dele dombo wa sen je ba tembo je ba la pen ni son des le dombo wa da shaju sen dombo je ken tu la go je ro le dombo sen je ba tempo jebala shangju sen tempo chaga tunda la ne peni ni son yo res ni de sho na xin dangba jo na na ba me bi so na yong sun zen ba os xin dangba jo os da shangju sen pen xin dangba jo se de ma be shangju sen ju li ji za ba de la sa ji den la da ma cha ma ge sha sha yu yosu jiba marbe jiden lama jebi shashan joros shangju sen jule jeba zangje ne lhada masama ge shasha yu chana gres shin dambaran jo was wadi mare ta neba mebi sunan je yongsun zenba wos neba mebi sunan je yongsun zenba saji ni do ni dombu ne jiden lama jebi shashan dende lendo de jiden lama de shunju de jiden lama jebi shashan joros jiden lama shin damban jo was woderes shangju sen juli jeba dan san and jiden lama jebi shin damban jo gre shasha yosu chana gres shangju senji juna geji ki kuyu tuna dambe nyata na deshe na shi senji jo yashin jiden lama jebi shashan jo wonderendo da jiden lama jebi shashan joro domne jiden lama jebi shashan joro shesomba dar sen jeman ta ne senjen tanje je yone su jo na sen jeman ta do ane senjen tanje shasha yu chana gres yone su jo na ta neba mebe suna ji yonsun jeba odele janji be saji gudi go neba mebe suna ji yonsun jeba se atele janji be odeka dulu kwa mro goyo jiro da goyo de saji goja yongore da neba mebe
okay
neba mebe suna yonsun jeba kuzu inshang ten go da shin damba jowa da tambu ji neba mebe suna yonsun jeba suna yongsun zenba has nipa je nipa dil go nipa dil janji saji go ja yongdu
nipa go ale okay
kale kutul inshang
so long ale okay so we have those two categories and Jayan Sheba says that there are 9 categories within the second category. So there will be 9 points that are made. So let's just start. So the benefits mentioned in the Bodhisattva levels are those of the aspirational spirit of enlightenment. And let me double check too that about the 9, where those 9. The Yanja Suranang, the Ewa Ni, the Longdang.
이완이 신데 정도다. 샹살레 송 샹살레 편송바네. 편세지 임베스.
Okay.
샹살레
Less so.
샹주 생 편송바데. 편세던 주생이가나. 편세지 편레스.
Less so.
편세지 샹주 생베 노바 마토비 샹주 생티 편
Less
송고야레스.
so.
편세지 편 임베.
Less so.
델레 레 담부 레 담보 생제바 땜바 제발라 편이 송도스 편이 니도 좋아서나 신당번 좋아 당부지
Less so.
너바 매비 소나지 소나 용선제바 니바지
Okay.
니바들 고레도
Okay, so we'll do two Chena.
갈레주
All right. So I've got the outline now. So now we have the 2 major headings that we talked about: the scripture and then the what's presented in the scripture. Okay, so that's different than what this next outline has to do with. So, and I'll show you why. So we're still in number 2 of what the scripture presented section. So it says the benefits mentioned in the Bodhisattva levels. So this is a text by Master Asanga, and the Shansa Ponjan Jugo, the Shansa Jugu Gare, then the Tambo Cheran the Shansa.
샹사 샹사 편송바 샹주 생 편, 샹사레 샹주 생 편송 이러다.
Then Cheran Jugu.
저거는 같은 샹사들 뭐부 주고도 거 주고. 뭐도 이제 거 지요 말이야. 샹사를 뭐부 주고도 거 주고.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there are 19 chapters or sections that we find in the Bodhisattva levels. So Rinpoche is mentioning that. It's a text by Master Asanga, and we find 19 sections in that text. Or 19 points, sections. So it says the benefits mentioned in the Bodhisattva levels are those of the aspirational spirit of enlightenment. So when we divide bodhicitta, or spirit of enlightenment, we divide it into 2 categories: aspirational spirit of enlightenment, or aspirational bodhicitta, and engaged spirit of enlightenment, or engaged bodhicitta. The mindset or mind state that wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings without a bodhisattva vow is aspirational bodhicitta, aspirational mind that aspires to awakening. So having the mind that wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, but having not taken a vow, makes that kind of bodhicitta aspirational. As soon as one, from the platform of that wish, takes a bodhisattva vow, at that point, and from that point forward, that spirit of awakening is called engaged spirit of awakening. So if one is a bodhisattva and has taken a bodhisattva vow, his or her bodhicitta from that point on will always be engaged bodhicitta. It won't be called aspiring bodhicitta again. It will always be called engaged bodhicitta. So this text here is saying that the benefits that you're going to see mentioned in the bodhisattva levels are only referring to the benefits of that aspirational mind, which doesn't have the vow involved. So it's saying if you're looking through texts and you find these in the bodhisattva levels, make sure you know that those benefits are referring to the benefits of aspiring bodhicitta and aren't mentioning the benefits of the engaged bodhicitta, which would be even more benefits. So it's just differentiating between the kinds of bodhicitta and showing that there are even more benefits you'll find than the ones just for aspiring bodhicitta. That text states 2 benefits for the first stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment: becoming a pure field for accumulating merit and becoming fully endowed with protective merit. So these are the 2 categories that are the next 2 categories in the Jayan Sheba outline. So this is where we now find a new part of the outline. So here it says, the text states 2 benefits for the first stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment. So it's talking about the bodhisattva levels, and it's saying in the Asanga's text, it says that the minute that you generate bodhicitta, the moment that the mind that aspires to enlightenment occurs, these 2 benefits occur at the same time. So Jayan Sheba says that the second category, which is being fully endowed with protective merit, has 9 points. Let me read now up to that. The first benefit, becoming a pure field for accumulating merit, is as follows. As engaging in the bodhisattva's deeds states, and are revered both in the worlds of humans and deities. So that is citing the quote from the Bodhichara Avatara from Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life that we went over before. The moment an awakening mind arises, and those fettered and weak in the jail of cyclic existence, they will be named a child of the Buddhas, and will be revered by both men and gods of the world. Humans and gods of the world, it should be translated. It should be revered by humans and gods of the world. So humans and gods, no matter where this being is in cyclic existence, will prostrate to that being, will bow down to that being who is now called Bodhisattva, now called child of the Buddhas. And it says, and you become an object of worship for all living beings immediately after you have developed the spirit of enlightenment. So the time frame that the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life is talking about, and the time frame that the Bodhisattva levels is talking about, are precisely the same time. The moment you get bodhicitta. So the benefits that are mentioned in the Bodhisattva levels are referring to the same time that you become revered by all gods and humans. So these 2 aren't the only ones, but they are ones that are mentioned that happened at that moment. So it says, immediately after you have developed the spirit of enlightenment. In accordance with the statement that immediately after developing the spirit of enlightenment, you surpass all the great arhats in terms of your lineage, you become superior and highest. Even when you perform a small meritorious action, it gives forth limitless effects. So you are a field for accumulating merit. As all the world relies on you, you are like the earth. Thus you are like a father to all living beings. So it's because the world relies on you, you've taken a vow to become a Buddha for all beings in all realms. So they're all relying on you, because you are the one who has said, I will save you all. So everyone, once you say, I'm becoming a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, that's a statement that doesn't sound as have as much gravity as it does, and it means that now you know all beings are relying on you to save them. So this is what it means. As all the world relies on you, you are like the earth. Thus, you are like a father to all beings. This is the first benefit, and now we get into the second benefit. And the second benefit, Jayan Sheba says, we'll find 9 points within it. Okay, then Rinpoche nga triwa yure, then the da jomba dang hapa, then kandre.
What is all my daughter?
Hua yurebe.
Tashan Chu Saint Parent, the Lampard, Uncle Prebu, Uncle Junil to the Uncle Juni.
Okay.
Uncle Juni, and my Shanju Saint Parent, and my daughter.
Oh, less so. And, also, we find, I was just asking Rinpoche about the surpassing the arhats, if that referring to only Hinayana arhats, and he said, we'll get into it later. It has to be, because a Buddha arhat already has it. So it must mean those Hinayana arhats in terms of lineage. So the 12th, Rinpoche is saying, we find the benefits of the mind that aspires to enlightenment in our prayer book. If you turn to the lamp for the path to enlightenment, the 12th stanza, and it's on page, it's on page 25, and we find the benefits begin on stanza 12.
我的上就先朋友的北京的安个军人用多，印象安个军人多，
Juni.
几百人多，
Dear Mimpi.
北安个军人多啊，印象可不多。
Dear Mimpi Sen Da.
这没比三大呢，这边的讲
Chipa.
上就先，
Juni.
我的看到了0 nas， 印象的印象。
So now we'll look at these stanzas in order to learn about the benefits. So it begins at stanza 12.
这没比三大呢，这边的讲一把送的，上就没三个朋友送吧的吧。为啥朋友讲一把的，东部隔壁多了送的，是东部隔壁多人多
Less
人。
so.
东部隔壁多了，上边绕的些是，东部隔壁多了，叫上面隔壁送的是东部隔壁多人多。
Less so.
比较上边送的是的，东部隔壁多了，上边绕的些是。我的朋友都跟我了，第一都路帮是。 不晓得路到哪样的，人家拉嘛的年呢，
Less
那
so.
朋友的西北去过的是，第一路帮，那路呢，先从那路，那马路吧，人家拉嘛的年的，路边上就像去，但他们把上就像朋友他们把的，那把西北去了是，上就像朋友这个西北去了，但那就像多，样那样多，山的结巴下是。 朋友上到那上就山的，样那样的上就山公过的。
Less so.
他北京就选到他了，开始去学什么了？北京就选到北京的学很多人多啊，北京就选到他来。第一说那着点吧，刚才世界上上多，对人这话下，
Less so.
上就山就说那讲，得了给的入钱呢，哪个讲的更讲的，真的得有老板就说，讲给什么当然去。 双节现在没讲给，人现在讲的，一天在我了陪我也，讲给他们家姐的，想就等的3顿呢，确保等的确保吧，得了他的嘛去说是，对吧？朋友的来多的，朋友多的带那谁不多的，
Less so.
可是隔来就路这些老啥呢？
So we begin with stanza number 12. And stanza number 12 is speaking of that moment where the mind that aspires to enlightenment or the spirit of awakening, bodhicitta, is generated. So it says, the qualities of developing such an aspiration are fully explained by Maitreya in the Array of Trunks Sutra. So that's the same text that Lama Tsongkhapa is referring to in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, the text that Rinpoche pointed out earlier. So it's the same one that's being cited in the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment as well. And it says, having learned about the infinite benefits of the intention to gain full enlightenment by reading this sutra or listening to a teacher, arouse it repeatedly to make it steadfast. So either learn about these benefits by reading the sutra or other sutras that have these benefits. So it's pointing out a specific sutra where we can find those benefits. So either do that, or listen to a teacher, a fully qualified teacher, give an explanation of those benefits. And then think over and over again about those benefits that you've read about or heard about, and then it will become solid within your continuum. So it will be steadfast. It will become stable once you think about it again and again and become familiar with it. It will become a stable part of your knowledge. It says then, the sutra requested by Viradatta. So here, this is another famous sutra that's quoted very frequently, in this verse quoted very frequently. It says, fully explains the merit therein. At this point in summary, I will cite just 3 verses. If it possessed physical form, the merit of altruistic intention would completely fill the whole of space and exceed even that. If someone were to fill with jewels as many Buddha fields as there are grains of sand in the Ganges to offer up to the protector of the world, this would be surpassed by the gift of folding one's hands and inclining one's mind to enlightenment, for such is limitless. So we'll take a short break and have tea, snacks, and we'll be right back. Thank you. Kanga have more categories. We don't have enough of those.
我的朗中的北京举行都打来是大概那么举行多就是，
Less so.
北京举行都打来， Di sunan ra neba kanzi seji song san to nudu nen de de sha. Shangju senji sunan kan tala ke de zu che na. Naki kan kun kan ten de laban juros. Ane shangju karsa Beijing ju shi. Beijing se kasin de yin ba. Beijing se kan de sangji shenjo gu tu le jabun da me jere mu de Beijing. Shida ge rich ku robo ne pai handle pem do. Pai handle pem le. Anu pai
Chobo ngapja?
robo nga pem le ngaja. Pai handle pem le.
Kompugu?
Beijing se kan shida ge rich le do.
Leso.
sangji shenjo gu tu le
Leso.
Beijing se rich je.
Seldu.
ane ku robo pem le ngaja do.
Okay.
An ko chuk nga lo. Nga tu sangji chue je ge yes.
Oh, leso.
sangji chue la tejen teme ni yo re.
Leso.
nga tu teme chue je ge me tejen chue je ge yes.
Leso.
ane nga tu ron sangji le chue go res.
Leso.
ane ko chuk ron sangji le chue do.
Leso.
Teba chenpi chue ka res je go res.
Leso.
Beijing chue shin tu so de yin ba.
Leso. So the sutra requested by Viradatta, Viradatta was someone during the time of Buddha who could be similar in terms of wealth to a king. He was someone who was very wealthy, and he was friends with, the word for Rinpoche is friend, with 500 families in the area. So the Viradatta made a request to Lord Buddha to come and give a discourse to this, it sounds like village. He was the head of a village or something like this. So this 500 families that he was friends with. So he was very wealthy, and he invited Buddha to come. And when the Buddha's teachings are divided into many categories. There are Hinayana teachings, lesser vehicle teachings, and Mahayana teachings, great vehicle teachings. And Viradatta specifically said he would like a teaching or discourse giving on the great vehicle teachings. So he requested Lord Buddha to come and give an explanation of Mahayana to this village or these people. And this sutra is the teaching that Lord Buddha gave to Viradatta and that group, to that assemblage. Digson Rinpoche.
Beijing Jushin lo wa de sanji ge de song do da. Shangju ge shangju ge sang so na de zo ma res.
Leso.
Ke de zo yi ba yin da na kha yong kan de res. De le ha ba ha ge res.
Leso.
Shangju sang so na ge de la ke de zo chen de zo yin ba yin na.
Leso.
Na ki kan kun kan de den de la ba ju. Na kha kan de le la no res.
Leso.
Ha ba shangju sang so na be phen che res.
Leso.
다 강기 신미 당년제 상지 신의 미강기 제다 군가데 지den권을 배워이 상지 강기 신미가 자다냐비 상지 신경 걸로 세라수비 간에 표월에 선어치로
Leso.
텔레 탐자의 상주 생공바이나
Leso.
선어 텔레치그리
Leso.
초반에는 제바바 텔레 탄 마치 소소 된도다
Leso.
와도르드나 세부도 세부
Leso. So it's so clear what the Buddha is saying. So when he was requested to give this explanation, this is what one of the points that Buddha made about the great vehicle, about the Mahayana. So the mind that aspires to enlightenment is the only entrance into the Mahayana, just as stated before. So this is what the Buddha said to this village. If it possessed physical form, so the sutra requested by Viradatta, it fully explains the merit therein. At this point in summary, I will cite these just 3 verses. So this is what the Buddha said. If it possessed physical form, the merit of the altruistic attention would completely fill the whole of space and exceed even that. So we know that the mind that aspires to enlightenment isn't form. So it's saying if it were magically turned into form, it would fill more than the space that we have. So it's trying to say the magnificence or the greatness of it. It's saying that we don't have enough space to hold that amount of form. So it says it would fill the whole of space and exceed even that. So even more than space we have. So there's not enough space to hold bodhicitta if it turned into a form. So that's the greatness. If someone were to fill with jewels as many Buddha fields as there are grains of sand in the Ganges to offer to the protector of the world. So if someone took that many jewels, gold, and were to be able to gather them all together and offer them to the Buddha, it says that that gesture wouldn't be as potent or as important as this would be surpassed by the gift of folding one's hands and inclining one's mind to enlightenment, for such is limitless. So it's saying generating that mind that wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of sentient beings, and so the generation of that mental state surpasses in terms of merit that previously stated offering that's so vast. So it's just showing the potency of the mind that aspires to enlightenment, of the motivation of working for others. It's showing the potency of that motivation. Diksung.
다 랑ren chimbo tene shugu sonja nishu tsadnu gol matrin jeba dro jeba shansa le pen somba ne pen se ji yimbe tele tombo sen jeba temba shawa la pen ni sondus shin tamban jowa dan ane nyoba me bi so na yong sun bas 다시 담반 조원 지된 하면 집에 사줘도 말বে 상주선 줄 집에 나와서 하다면 수 샤샤 유즈 주거레스 담베제
Lesso.
다니바 너바 멤비 소나 용순 집에들 원장 집에 사지 구디고 될 고고요 저보다 고고디도 고고는 담보 세제마다 다조바다니 전부 나장 리즈고네 세주너바 세주 너버 손바터 라마 고만조와다 소나 샤와 총시 세장 저부타예번 진비 소나 다신다 지den타지 템비 사변다부 사다부스 대형 사스른 다음에 모두 지금도 순이서 말베 셰송바터 저거 당제제 파던 자와 주어스 어때 담부들다
Tambo.
당은 담부들에도와
Lesso.
세제만 다 가다 상주 센터 줄제만 다도 녀퇴던 라사제 다중가 세지는 그래서
Okay.
리지군은 세지는 바다 루이군은 세지는 바스 니요로니 리지군은 세지는 바스 상주 센터 줄제만 다와 니네 퇴도 라제도 걸로 리지군은 세지는 그래서 상주 센 세전 다지게도 사지고 모토바 샤오냐비 센이다 니퇴도 라제 세전 다지게도 타바토나냐비 상로 매드로 대이차는 세지는 그래서 리지군은 세지는 바스
Lesso. Okay.
리지군은 세지는 바스 루이군은 세지는 바데 사담은이바 손바제방가 바도 사dwi발 마도요 말에 사dwi바 되네 린도 손 로양 하반조로스 네 샤주 선바데 사dwi바도 바데세 리지군은 니 퇴랑제 세진의 바 마제 루이군의 저 세진의 그래서 루이군의 가래 세진의 그래서나 사dwi바 투비 거서 돈이랑 원송도 판조바다 세당와 깨지질는 그래서 사드비 가서 돈이랑 원소도 봐줘 세당와 니가 깨지질는 그래서 내가 인상 내랑 다중설 때요 말했어 루이군의 세진의 바테네레스 사드비발이 와레스 데네렌도 손 루이랑 하반조로 사드비바 데네렌도 손 루이고 사드비 가서 내랑 다중 레지군의 세진의 바 마제 루이군의 세진의 그래서 루이군의 세진의 춘이랑 원소도 샤주지 깨지만 찔라 파조바다 니가 뇌배에서 대녀라다 좀 뇌배에서 what they matter.
I'm going to have to look that up. Okay, so we're going back to the text, and it says that The benefits mentioned in the Bodhisattva levels are those of the aspirational spirit of enlightenment. The text states 2 benefits for the first stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment. 1, becoming a pure field for accumulating merit, and 2, becoming fully endowed with protective merit. So these are the 2 categories. In the first category, we went over extensively, where once you generate this mind that aspires to enlightenment, you become a son of the Sukha, a child of the Sukhatas, a child of the Buddhas, and will be revered by both gods and men. So it says the first benefit, becoming a pure field for accumulating merit, is as follows. As engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, and are revered both in the worlds of humans and deities, yes, see here it says humans, not men, you become an object of worship for all living beings immediately after you have developed the spirit of enlightenment. In accordance with the statement that immediately after developing the spirit of enlightenment, you surpass all the great arhats in terms of your lineage, you become superior and highest. So we look at, there can be 2 categories. There is realization in terms of your, so it would just be in terms of lineage would be the first category, and the second category would be in terms of, it's almost like, I'm going to need to look this second one up, some of the details within it, but in terms of realization or in terms of mental aptitude, Louis, I know what the Tibetan is. I have a dictionary to look it up, but I don't want to waste time here. But so what this means is that at the moment that that being generates the mind that aspires to enlightenment, he or she becomes a child of the Buddhas, becomes a lineage within the lineage of the Buddhas. A Hinayana foe destroyer, whether he or she is a hearer foe destroyer or a solitary realizer foe destroyer, foe destroyer is an arhat. So whether he or she is a Hinayana arhat, a hearer arhat, or a Prachika Buddha arhat, it doesn't matter. Once one gets bodhicitta, he or she is in the lineage of the Buddha, and that lineage is a higher lineage than the lineage of a Hinayana, because that, as a translator's note, that lineage only has the potential to allow you to achieve nirvana. You can't become a Buddha with that lineage. The lineage that you enter when you generate bodhicitta is the one that allows you to achieve Buddhahood. So your lineage at that point surpasses even an arhat of the Hinayana vehicle's lineage. So that's what it means. So there are, in terms of lineage and in terms of realization. Now, where in terms of realization we find a differentiation taking place is at the 7th Bodhisattva ground. And at that point, at the 7th Bodhisattva level, the Mahayanist, Rinpoche is saying, it's something about the direct valid cognition of emptiness that occurs, has somehow it is more potency at that point than anything that the Hinayanist has realization-wise. And I'm going to need to look it up. It's why they call the last 3 Bodhisattva grounds the 3 pure grounds, because those grounds, they have qualities arising that surpass the Hinayanists. And that's what those allows them to become a Buddha, is those gaining those extra qualities that the Hinayanist doesn't have. And those happen on those grounds, those pure grounds. So I need to look up, Rinpoche is saying there's a direct valid cognition that takes place. I just need to look it up. I don't want to mistranslate something that important. But there's differentiation in terms of lineage and in terms of realization. And the Mahayana surpasses in terms of realization at that ground. The Hinayanas cannot realize what the Bodhisattva does on that ground. Their path falls short of that. But in terms of lineage, the being at the point of getting bodhicitta surpasses even a being in nirvana, it's saying, who's already enlightened, out of cyclic existence altogether, in terms of their lineage. Dikson. Selbudu.
Loyu kuna sejin na batan, reji kuna sejin na example deja yore. Jabi bo chuchung ka na wata lomba kangalo reji kuna sejin yore. Ko jabi bo yindu lomba kangalo te sejin yore. Rejigun is in Novares. Lugun is in the Hulujon Jen, Chenmo Machana, and Kulugun is in tomorrow. Jemakalaji, Tobachina, Shen Chabachazuna, Lugun is in Nogro. What the Dabasung example?
So Rinpoche is giving an example to clarify in terms of lineage. So an example would be if a child has if a king has a child, then that child, in terms of lineage, has this, not superiority, but has this king's lineage because he is a son of the king, so he has this lineage. But does not have these qualities, doesn't have, until the child goes and studies and learns and becomes educated, he or she doesn't have it in terms of realization or understanding. So I'm going to need to look up the exact word. I don't think it's realization. It can't be. In terms of lineage is the direct translation, and I'm using in terms of realization, but it might be in terms of. I can just look it up. Lu, in terms of. I think everyone understands the meaning. That's the most important part. Accomplishment. Yeah, maybe that's it. In terms of accomplishment. That's a way to translate it. So the child has immediately, when he or she is born, this lineage of the king, but no accomplishment. That's a way. That's good. It's good for me. Accomplishment.
This one.
Digson.
What the neighbor sent Jama the Rajumba Chamberna Chan, Rijuguna, Seji, Naba, Joa Somba, Lama, Comanjo, Sona, Shawa Chung, Shejan, Shanju sent to Yabaina, Sona Chujun Sabaina, Drebu Movingores, Drebu Taiban Jimbe, Sona Jishindan, Jiden Tanji Tembe, Satabures, and then Shanju sent. Jiden Tanji Tembe Satabo. They are Sasrin Dawme. Modu Jele Satabi Sanji Sajuro.
Oh, I forgot
What do the
that.
ladies Amarbe? Satabo, Shesomba Terror. Jogu Tanji Padan Rawa. Jogu Tanji Padan Shanju Sende. Jogu Tanji Padan Rawa and you are Sundos.
The Chik Lako, Chik Jesung. And so once one becomes, it says that immediately after developing the spirit of enlightenment. So that is an actual point, a turning point. So you become a bodhisattva at that point. And then we find in the Abhisama Alamkara, the Nishu Gatsudue. Nishu the Semche, Nishu 21 types of bodhicitta mentioned in the 22 levels of bodhicitta that are mentioned in the Abhisama Alamkara. Saser, so it begins with ground, then gold, Saser, Dawakamar, then moon, then stars. So these are all names of levels of bodhicitta. So Sa is the first, the ground. So that's what it's saying. Immediately when you develop the spirit of enlightenment, when you reach that first place, not to be confused with the bodhisattva grounds, it's different. When you reach this first level called ground of the 22, you surpass at that point. And it says, as the world relies on you, you are like the earth. So that's why the first of the 22 is called ground. That earth is just another translation for ground. So Sa, so earth. They're talking about the first of the 20. This right here, you are like the earth, is referring to the Abhisama Alamkara, and that's the first stage, earth or ground, of bodhicitta among the 22. So it says you're like the earth because you're a foundation. So the 22 levels of bodhicitta in the Abhisama Alamkara, the first is earth. Thus you are like a father to all beings. Digsung, Selbulasung.
Oje, that neba was neba. Koloju, Jabu Soma Ninju Jitatu Sombe, Ni Lukan, Chunsan Bameba Junan, Sunan Mayin, Noma Nebi, Naji, Semini Baos, what the ane shangchu sen ju li weba yina ane khulu ju jabo le tene soma mambu yo jiro tena jin ane wa shangchu sen ju li jema taba tele soma su ne ane nyoba nyonyo res nyoba nyonyo tuku ma res khulu ju jabo se ngun sanja khulu ju jabo tela se ju khulu jen ngun khulu jen sang khulu jen cha khulu jen jemu do je
Gold.
se khulu yo khulu ju jabo se khulu ju jabo de lin je gal on ju res lin je sha lo no shang lin je gal on ju res
4
se
continents.
ngun khulu jen lin song ju res sang khulu jen de lin yin ju res cha khulu jen lin ji lo on ju res se ngun sa ja khulu jen
Ni.
khulu ju jabo
Jak chi.
se khulu jen je sang khulu jen song sang khulu jen song ngun khulu jen song cha khulu jen
Sang ni.
sang ni
Okay.
cha
Jak
chi
chi. Okay. Tu chant it. Then
Se ngun sa ja
ser
khulu
je.
ya
Shalupa lojan. This ser.
wa de yin song ya
Tu chant. Okay. So the second benefit, being fully endowed with protective merit, is as follows. As you are always protected by guardians that are twice as numerous as those of a universal monarch, you cannot be harmed by yaksas or local spirits, even when you are sleeping, drunk, or careless. So it says that if you have this mind that aspires to enlightenment, you will always be protected, even more so than a universal monarch would be. So universal monarchs, it says in texts that there are these different universal systems. There's the golden universe, there's the silver universe, there is a copper universe, and then there is an iron universe. So in our universe, we're in the gold universe. And there are 4 continents in the golden universe, the north, south, east, west continents. You see in the mandala offering, you find those different continents, Shar Lupapo, Lo Zambaling, John Dramanyen. Those are the 4 continents that fall under the golden monarchy. The silver monarchy, there are 3 continents. The copper monarchy, there are 2. And the iron monarchy, there are 1. The point being here, there are all of these monarchs and monarchies in the worlds, and the various universes. And these aren't what we see, just as a translator note. There's universes, boundless, limitless universes, and we're in this golden universe. And what it's saying is that once you generate this mind, you can imagine those monarchs, what kind of protector and guardians they must have. You'll have more. So that's the point that it's being made. You'll have more guardians than a universal monarch. And then the universal monarchs are explained in those 4 different categories, and ruling over these, a total of 7, 8, 9, 10 different lands.
So
this is the first category. So that is the first category. Remember, we said there were 9 categories, what I just read. So I'll do it again. The second benefit, being fully endowed with protective merit, is as follows. As you are always protected by guardians that are twice as numerous as those of a universal monarch, you cannot be harmed by yaksas or local spirits, even when you are sleeping, drunk, or careless. That's category number 1 among the 9. The second begins here. Secret mantras and knowledge mantras that can cure epidemics, injuries, and infections, but are not effective in the hands of living beings, become effective when the stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment uses them. So if you have this mind that aspires to enlightenment, mantra works. It's basically saying Tantrayana doesn't work without bodhicitta. So you aren't able to generate any of the stages. So we divide up Tantra. We divide it into 4 categories. We say there is action Tantra, performance Tantra, yogic Tantra, and highest yoga Tantra. And then the lower Tantras, we find the yoga with and without signs, and the higher Tantras, we find the generation and completion stage practices. All of those practices and the mantras contained within them require this generation of the mind that aspires to enlightenment in order to work. So this is the second point, that bodhicitta becomes indispensable in terms of mantra, tantrayana, because it requires it. Dikso.
Da song ba wa de yin an ji shang ju ge sen de ye ba yin na, shang ju sen de ye ba yin na, an nga zu na sa gu ya yo ro na sa ji ji gu ne do. Wo de su yong go ma yang dang ne ba dang nan go wa na sa ji ji gu de ya. Wo de tang ji shang ju sen de ye na me ba cha ne ge shen de ge re s. Xie wa xie ba. Sentient na la na duba la na sentient ji la na duba ma duba na jang di la du wong yu duban jo na duba ta che me de ne she wa la su bi le su jang sen ji ten na du la wa ten be tu mo ki ngo duba la de yue na nyu wa wo s 원두도 계시부도 내가 계시부도 아
Ngay saba nga ngay the trusun, the tranka trusun. Tambo, then the summa ngatsu ropache. Nipa,
니바도 와데 니루가
nga the raze, then the
니바데
Nugamari.
상아도 와서 니바데
sanga nipa.
니바 와데 장주 생유나 제린 두린 주디지 샤주 쇼주 내주 라나메 주 네 체직 내주도 세명 내주도 제린도 두린 두리 라부 용거를 상아세데
The lapson. Then
Tetaro.
kabar kagadu.
상아당 세데 오더레
Sanga dan.
당세데 니바레 송바 링아제 원나메 니발레오레 링아제 시 양당 너바다 nengo와 셔와 셰바 세제 라나 두바마 루바 나장 니라 동원유 루반 줘나 루바 따체메 데네 셔와라소베 데데 모모도 칼레주 칼레
Kabiyare.
다 가데 상주 생주르에나 나사 지진 고엔다면도 지 나사 찔로 와도 순간 용어 말해서 됐다 고네 말베 에드 나사 사나다 진 고데야면도 왜 나사 범물은 그 범물은 다서 벌로 된도 와도 순 까투 그래서다 링아지 치 양당 나사거리 이제로 너바다 마다 마마이 너바 nengowa nata chichil ngonde ati injiro. Nengowa sheba pontu kures. Senchen lana duba maruba, susu lana maruba, nchala zawa chimatu le laba laban yungures. Maruba na jang di la du yu shangshu sendi yueba ina. Yungures kurun chala zawa chimatu kariyo na di laba yungures ta. Ruban jona, ruba tachemes, shiguya yomares. Dene shewala subi le, shi le, jibi le, wangi le, trabi le. Watu sunga shangshu sendi yona, shi le laban ru yungure, tsarin wata neme bala suba, le laban yungure, ane tsatan sunan je bala suba, le laban yungure.
Shewala, Shansa, the indicate the Shansa le, the detsko, the need something the Chishina the indicate true. The Tranka ja the Yanja, the Tambo, the Nipa Kabar Kabiore, the Sanga,
Nibato koloju, nibaroa,
the Tambo Koloju Jalpo Tambo.
tambaje, nibato sanga tase nibaje, ringa sombaje.
Ale,
So
Ale, Sanga dan Ringa.
Ko
Ni. Okay, I'm sorry. So the reason that I couldn't figure this out is that The second category is just secret mantras. And then that was what I explained. Remember the yoga with and without signs, the generation and completion stages, all of those. And then knowledge mantras. That's the third category. That's why I couldn't figure out where. I was looking for sentences to stop and start, and it's just not the way the outline is. So the third category is the knowledge mantras that can cure epidemics, data, injuries, and infections, but are not effective in the hands of living beings, become effective when someone with a stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment uses them. Why mention the mantras that do work when used by living beings? Okay, so that de Sumba, then Shansa.
Ne kana ne ba teyang. Jiba dan jiba jowa dan magadan mama yimbi. Ne ba ma jowa mama yimbi. Ne ba ma jowa na.
Oh, didn't
Ne
I?
jongxin. Shongwa na shawan jowa wos. Wata ba tu songba re dowa. Jiba tsepe ne zo wanda jiba re.
Dine Shewala Digare.
Ah.
Dine Shewala Sopi Le Tsok.
Shewala sobi le shangju sen de na shi le jibi le onge le trabi le tu le lab yong gres.
Okay, then Tranka Gare, Sumba Jipa.
Ah, te niba kong de do niba. Niba re niba. Songba re songba. Songbi kong re. Renga dan renga ji chi yang dan.
Okay.
Neba shewa neba
The
dan.
Kanga Ringa.
Nengo de renga
Kanga.
mangwa.
Okay, so
Kale ju kale.
the knowledge mantra section is quite large, so it actually keeps on going here. So knowledge mantras that can cure epidemics, injuries, infections, but are not effective in the hands of living beings become effective when someone with a stable generation of the spirit of enlightenment uses them. Why mentions the mantras that do work when used by living beings? The Bodhisattva levels teaches that when your spirit of enlightenment is stable, you also accomplish the collections of actions, pacifying, and so forth. Now, here it says the Bodhisattva levels, but I'm looking at the Tibetan here, and it says Shiwala. Rinpoche, Shiwala Suribe. Chandrashita? Shiwala.
Shewala marada de.
Shunju. Shansa.
De shewala soba.
Shewala gare.
Ne meba, ne bomba. Ya bomba de la shewala.
Oh, Shiwa. Okay.
Shewala ko ju ma.
Oh, gonga me bachi ngejun. Okay, Shiwala. Nge Shiwala anja gu the nge sampa. Shiwala.
Shewa bomba.
Okay. I was
Yeah,
just
the-
another example of words that sound exactly the same but mean two different things. So it's correct. So the Bodhisattva levels teaches that when your spirit of enlightenment is stable, you also easily accomplish the collections of actions, pacifying, and so forth. So there are the lei gatsire je. There are four categories.
Dag ne de ba chi shewa du shi le. Dag tsedo sona jebe le. Ne de ne ongle ma ongle. De ne zabi le. Je ro le je. Wo de zu shangju sen yue na shi le ya bu yong go de, jebe le ya bu yong go de, ongle ya bu yong go de, zabi le ya bu yong go de.
Less so.
Shi su ge le.
Less
Wo de le la bu yong go de.
So if you have this, then you will easily, here it says, accomplish the collections of actions. So the collections of, there are various actions of pacifying, subduing, increasing, and violent, or the word violent is sometimes, there's the other way they translate it is wrathful. So the wrath, violence, wrath. So the actions of pacifying, subduing, increase, of increase and of wrath. So these things will be increased, and again, as just as a translator's note, obviously the Buddha is incapable of anger, so wrath is a virtue in this case. It's is a virtue. It's not a non-virtue. So it's considered you're trying to increase your wrath, but it's not the kind of wrath that we're speaking of. It's a wrath that's beneficial. As just as a note, protector deities are wrathful. They have wrathful looks to scare off the afflictions. So wrath is to harm afflictions, to harm your non-virtues, going to war on your non-virtue. It's that kind of wrath. Pacifying and so forth. So if you have this, you will also quickly ordinary special. Then sumba kabar tsar.
다 드모 ngodu 주발랑 내매바 처리와 드모 ngodu 이지로 드모 ngodu. 어때 주발라야 샤주 센드에는 뇨그레스 뇨오스. 다 샤주 센바 내 간나 내바 대양. 샤주 센바 사주 가바 여바이나 텔린지바다 지반조와다 네 메가다 메마이미 녀발라서바 네 뇨그레스.
The sumba.
네바 마조데 sombi
Okay,
sombi.
Tuchena. Okay, so still in number 3, so if you have this, you also quickly accomplish ordinary spiritual attainments. Wherever you are staying, there will arise no fear, no causes of fear, no famine, and no harm from non-humans, and you will quell those that have already happened.
다 제바든 츠피 요도스데 시사요도 네 시사요도야 된 샤주 센데 뱀마 요아요아레스 츠피 요도야 너바 뇽신 시사주 셰요도야 아니 너바 뇽요레스 바도다 저와 샤마도 랜드 너바 뇽요레스 너바 뇽신
Lesso.
뇽신 라지지 네메바 나사시라 용고 말레스
Lesso.
라지지 네메바다 너바 쇼나 연рем부터 잡이 mendebaas neba shomba yina yonrimbudan neba trabu yungu mares trabu mendeba dans whatever the jiba.
Okay, so number 4, also, after death you will have little trouble, and you will be naturally healthy in your next life. Even if some harm does arise, it will not last long or be severe. Chudemba so semche.
Tsibiyo neba dedmarmudo. Desme.
The ditsa, the ngapa, the chudemba.
Ngaba chudemba sa tro. Ngaba chudemba la subi sijeji tela juba na. Le mengeji je ngeba da senyaba menjuro sute ngaba dedmarmudo.
Lesso.
Shangju sen de yoba ina yen le chuswa la suba. 근데 그 강한 집에서 내 강한 심을 용 말해서 세전나라 네 세제주 되라 줘봐나 르맹에지 르 강한 용 말해서 제바 용 말해서 퍼가지서
Lesso.
제 내봐다 세냐바 용 말해서 세냐바 먼저로 와서 나바래서 나봐.
And number 5, when you engage in the welfare of living beings, giving teachings, etc., your body will not feel tired. You will not be forgetful, nor will your mind degenerate.
다 drobatene shansen rila neba ne shansen rila neba ne ranji jejang ne ngene nywa yilas senjena ne ludan senje ne ngene shindu nywa joros odkani sungudwa shansen rila neba shansan rila neba pechi niji chenpo juli che du tiba chenpi ri seba isa mara. Techen tu ri seba se tu shuwa na, niji chenpo juli che su na, techen tu ri seba ri seba. Shansan rila neba se pechi niji chenpo juli che bala se goyon ro. Shansan rila neba ne, rangjin ji ne nga ne nyong shin si, rangjin ji uku natsa dang, odan de nyong ayo res, nyong ayin las. senje na ne shangju ju de senje ba yin na ne le da senje ne nge ne shen du nyong ju ros shangju sen ju li je ba yin na ne le da nga de sen ne nge ne du nga lo shen du nyong ju res wa de ba de ba de ba
Number 6, if you are one who abides in the bodhisattva lineage, you naturally have few dysfunctional tendencies. Once you have developed the spirit of enlightenment, the dysfunctional tendency of your mind and body are extremely slight. So once you generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, then these dysfunctional tendencies are lessened to the point of almost eradicated. They still may be there, but they're very slight, if they are at all. And bodhisattva lineage, what distinguishes that lineage is great compassion. So the great compassion for all is the distinguishing factor of the great vehicle or bodhisattva lineage. It's the great compassion. So it says that all of these negativities, once the mind that aspires to enlightenment is generated, become lessened to the point of slight. So it says the mind and body are, it says dysfunctional tendencies of your mind and body are extremely slight. Diksun.
다 눈바드 상주 생바드 저바드 덴바드 저바.
Lesso.
저바 여바 연상 저바다 대바다 덴바 인소상 덴베 촌너바 너바셰바 저진스 수술 첸너바 제기는 상주 생바 저바 공그레스. 저진스 판너바 메제바 옌 판너바 시그마레스 너바 메제라 옌지 옌라 너바셰바 토나 신도 먹어와나 옌지 옌라 너바셰나 어디 상주 생바 통수나 상주 생바 셀 집이요 마레스 신도 먹어와다스 콘트로와다 차두다 요다 요다 참발라 소바 나장 ringa le majishin jena shumadaba rindu meneba nyodo tawa juwa wo so de ba dunba renduwa dunba kontrowa dan chadu dan kontro yong mare chadu yong mare yejo yodan chambala so ba na jang te yong res ringa zang le majishin shangju sembal te ma do shuchu yong mare majishin kedi jeba inaya shu madaji shu dabu yungu mares chushung jimadu neba chibu yungu mares shu madala rindu neba maju ku tete yungu ina ku junu manetu mara tengara mares ku nyeba tengu yiro nyoto dewa njoro osu otebadu dunba kale ju kale.
Number 7. You are patient and gentle. So you see others hurting each other, you are very displeased. If you see others hurting each other, you are very displeased. You seldom give rise to anger, jealousy, deceitfulness, concealment, and the like. If they do arise, they are not intense, they do not last long, and quickly disappear. So even these negative qualities, even though they are still even though they still may be present, when they do arise, they arise in a very subtle way, and they're easily destroyed or easily thwarted when they do arise if you have this generation of the mind that aspires to enlightenment. It's because you have this patience and gentle nature that works against jealousy, deceitfulness, concealment, etc. So the basis of your motivation is antagonistic to those things. So that's why these things only arise in small forms, because they are antagonistic to your main objectives. Okay.
나송도 제바이나 녀와에 돈을 제바이나 녀 타그레스 타바다스 대야 동에 총와다서 나송도 제바이나 동에 조종레스 동에 처음용 말레스 대전시네 코아발라 신도 조와다 세제다달라 현지조사 나송도 제바이나야 대전시네 대조시네
라서
네 코아발라 현지 저거です현지 조와다 세제나라 현지 조와다 손은 간주 상바 이사마르바 소소 등을 타도 간주 상바 조와다 소소 간중 상바에 보마제 세제 제달은 현지 쪽으로스 현지 쪽으로스 어디봐도 제발에
So number 8, it is difficult for you to be reborn in the miserable realms. Even if you are reborn there, you will quickly get free. Even while there, your suffering will be slight. Because of it, you will be very disenchanted with cyclic existence and generate compassion for the beings there. So once you generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, you are such a holy being, it's very difficult for you to be reborn into the lower realms, for your karma to force you into those positions. But if you are, because of previous karma, you won't suffer as much as you normally would there. The duration of time won't be anywhere near as long, and it will actually enhance your renunciation while you're there and enhance your compassion because you will be able to generate for the other beings that are suffering around you. So even if you do have to experience it, it will become a tool, and your suffering won't be as extreme as those around you because of that. Dikson. That's number 8.
고바 데레도 고바 샹주 지 센지 소나 조젠도 샹주 센데 소나 샹주 센지 소나 데조 마레스
Lesso.
케데 조젠도 조바이나 나카야 뭐 송와다스 나키 칸 군간데 데네 데율 하바조 다게 데어든도
Lesso.
나카야 뭐 송와다스 샹주 센지 소나 데조 데디오면 나카야 송고 마레스 나카야 용조 칸네 델릴 하바 용고레스 산 마송와다 산지 산진기 쳬바유 차동도야 마쳬바스 아네 산지 둘 마돌라서 쳬바베와레 샹주지 산지 산공바이나 소노 베자쳬버레스 마돌라서 쳬바데 차동야 마쳬바다스 다간데 마두발라서 쳬발레 샹주 산공바이나 편셔버시라 용거래 송대인사래
Lesso.
베이징 지슈발레 샹주 산지 소나가
Chiba.
델라게데 조제나 나게 칸은 군가데 데네데 하반조로 강게 셴미 다네 지선지시나 메강게 레제다 군가데 게덴데 군라 표와이 강게 탐제제데 샹주드는 산드나 쳬반데는 제바바 델라 타는 마치소 셰송소스 오데바든데레도 제바드레도 야
Gupa.
고바
So this is number 9. If the merit of the spirit of enlightenment were to take form, it would not even fit into the sky, nor does the merit of making material offerings to the Buddha equal even a mere portion of that. The questions of the householder Viradatta Sutra states. So here we are again, the same quote, same sutra that Atisha quotes in the Lamb for the Path to Enlightenment. And we read it, and Rinpoche explained it, but here we hear it again. If whatever merit there is in the spirit of enlightenment had form, it would fill the entire vault of the sky and then exceed it. Were someone to fill the Buddha realms with jewels as numerous as the grains of sand of the Ganges and offer this to the protector of the world, far superior is the merit in the offering of one who, joining his or her hands, reverently generates the spirit of enlightenment. There is no limit to the merit in this. Dikson. So we're out of time. So we'll do the concluding mandal offering and dedication prayer. Thank you very much, everyone. Rinpoche, Tuchena, Sheda Selbudu. I said Rinpoche, thank you. It's so clear, these teachings. And so helpful. Rinpoche said everyone listened so well. Thank you for listening so well. So with concluding mandal offering, dedication prayer. Anyone who's new, I don't think, back of the prayer book. Fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers. Adown with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. Whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. That pure land surrounded by snowy mountains is the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tu Geshe Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denrona, Tu Lamrim Chenmo Kanga Trilna. Thank you, everyone.